Guess who's back? Back again. The broads are back. Tell a friend.
Guess who's
Da-na-na,
back? Guess who's
da-na-na,
back? Guess who's back?
da-na-na,
Guess who's
da-na-na.
back? Da-na-na.
Hello and welcome to Frequency Broads. I am Victoria.
And I am Tara, and we are back. We are back at it. It has been a little bit of a break, a little bit of reflection time, and now we are ready to ease back into it. And we have a little switch up for season 2. Before we get into what season 2 is going to look like, um, I know Victoria and I took this time to really reflect on how we felt about season 1, what things came up for us after re-listening. And it's so important to practice what we preach, and we talk about cycles and taking that time for rest and reflect, and we definitely did that. So Victoria, are we going to go tit for tat here? You're going to tell me one thing, I'm going to tell you one thing. Do you want to just like flood me with everything you got from season 1? How you feeling?
Let's go tit for tat.
All right, I'm going to tit you first. Ooh. I didn't even mean that, but okay. Why don't you go first is what I meant to say.
Hmm. Well, okay, here's the thing. I feel like looking back at myself, I felt like such a scaredy cat in so many different ways. Like I have kept this part of myself hidden for so long, and to kind of just put it all out there and on the internet was a very courageous act, and
Mhm.
definitely battled the doubts that come with being vulnerable and sharing parts of myself that very few have experienced. And it's been so liberating to finally have this kind of open channel uh, through my voice. I mean, I have felt, and if you listen to season 1, you know how much throat chakra shit I worked through.
Mhm.
And it brought awareness to the power of expression and
Mm.
creativity, and how we all deserve to know and understand how it is that we best express ourselves. There is no right way, right? Like you really are, you have this unique expression, and when you start to honor your own uniqueness
Mhm.
and live authentically, you sink deeper into your body, you feel more comfortable and confident. And I've, like many people, have gone through all of the waves of insecurity to then having kind of this full-blown inflamed ego and feeling very full of myself. And that doesn't happen as often as being insecure, of course, right? But in the reflecting on the insecurities, how much of it was my own stuff versus what was programmed into me by
Mm.
society, by, I mean, society is like encompasses everything, so we'll leave it at that. But I found a newfound respect for myself, and have realized the power of being this kind of open vessel to receive information. And channeling is a very strange thing. And to put myself out there and let people know that this is sort of how I operate, how I experience life. And it's very different than how many experience life. Some people want to understand, some people want to experience it themselves, some people think I'm crazy, and it's all beautiful, fine, and fun and lovely. And I really honor each person's, um, I guess, place of where they are in their evolution and what information they're able to receive. And knowing that it's all going to happen in right time, which is another lesson I kind of learned the hard way while we were on break.
Mm.
Timing and trust seem to be common themes in my life, and I feel like there are just always these experiences that I get to live and sink deep into. Oh, this is how I lean into trust. This is what
Mm.
it's like to surrender. This is what it's like to experience the deepest, yummiest, most sensual forms of pleasure, and equally so, the most heart wrenching pain. And so, something I'll want to jump into is the alchemy of heartbreak and how
Mm.
to utilize that open, raw, vulnerable heart to grow and evolve and not let it be something that continues to drain your energy or to kind of perpetuate those negative thoughts, but really let it be this liberating experience.
So, reflecting on, we all know you've been working on your throat chakra through season one. So now at the start of through season two, how is your throat feeling? Like, what do you feel that you're still in that cycle? Have the cycle restarted? Yeah, where are you at with that?
It comes and goes. I'd say for the most part, I've found this state of equilibrium where I really am anchored in my truth and expression. And I have the courage to, and I guess also I know when to say what and when to
Mm.
who, if that makes sense. So I think there's like that part of discernment of like, when I feel called to say something, I'll say it. But I think when it comes to being here on this screen in front of this microphone and putting myself out there, I'm like ready. I'm ready to rock and roll. I know you've been
Hell
ready for
yeah.
a long time. And I think that there is some resistance on my end. And like, why am I doing this? I'm scared. I'm going to be criticized. I'm going to, all this shit that I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
no, actually, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So here I am,
Good.
baby.
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that for you. And I'm proud of you for
Thank you.
recognizing that, like, yes, like just the basic fact, or I should say, basic reminder that you are worthy and your voice has value. So I'm happy that although you know that you're finally feeling that as well and stepping into that. And it's funny that you mentioned like that I've been like ready to do this. And for sure, like my throat and being expressive was not on the same journey as yours when we
Wait,
started.
wait, wait. Last night we were at our
Yeah.
sisterhood circle and Tara is a self-proclaimed, and I will second, you are the queen of communication
Oh,
because
thank
you are
you.
so, I mean, she's the person you go to when you're like, "How do I draft this out? How do I say what I'm trying to say?"
Thank you.
Queen
I
of
appreciate that.
communication right here.
Queen of communication put on my crown. But their imposter syndrome has been coming up for me recently. I mean, obviously, I feel that it's a common theme in everyone's life, right? Everything we do, we always have that fear that we're not good enough. And it really showed me, I didn't realize how much it was playing out in the podcast until I started listening back from the beginning, knowing where we ended, where that 10th episode was, and how like free we truly were, and remembering the feeling. And I can only speak for myself, Victoria. So I don't know if you were feeling this, but like this need to be, or this need to come off as credible and valid. So in the beginning, even with my editing, all the small like hiccups or when we would like joke, like I was like, take it out, take it out. There was some of that, but I was like, no, I want people to meet us and feel like our information is valid and that they can trust what we have to say. And they were from a place of fear, right? Like I wanted to have people feel like that I knew what I was talking about. And as the season went on, I recognized that like that definitely shifted for me. I think it shifted for both of us, that we really just stepped into, we have so much knowledge, whether it's, voted credible or not. But what allows us to express that is through authenticity. And I feel like that really showed, that evolution really showed in season one. And I think it will also show in season two. Um, but that was a big thing for me, like seeing how like stoic and like those first couple episodes, like they're so flat.
What? Yeah, thank you for anyone who listened to those because that, yeah, they were flat and like,
Like they were good. People still really like them. And I'm not trying to like shit on either of us. Don't get me wrong, people. Like I'm still
but it
very
was just such a
proud.
small part of who we are, and I think
Yes.
that's what you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I'm still so fucking proud of like what we've created thus far and what we're moving into. But it's just really amazing to kind of see that evolution and say, like, all right, how much nuance we really and like authenticity really started to come out. Um, Although there was a part of me that was very authentic from the beginning, which was the teacher Tara that I recognized so strongly listening to myself, where like, as a teacher, I'm so used to repeating, finding the common thread throughout the whole thing. And then at the end of my sentence, kind of like reviewing, like just the end of my sentence, not like the end of the podcast. Like I'd finish my rant and I'm like, so pull piece from the beginning, pull piece from the middle, and wrap it in a bow at the end, which I hope has been helpful. But I also can
Yeah.
recognize the teacher in me where I'm like, damn, always pulling that common thread, always whipping it around. And I hope that people take it as like not like what's the word I'm looking for? Like over and over and you know what I mean? Like repetitive, but just really trying to hone in the main points, especially because I talk so much. Um, I also realize I talk like my fucking mother, like heavy.
Yeah.
And y'all will be meeting her this season. Um, so you'll really be able to see how much I'm like my mom. And I guess, I mean, there's other points, but like one more little like bullet point would be how much you ground me, Victoria. Like how
Mm.
much like yes, I'm pulling the common thread, but I'm like weaving and sewing. And you're just like, hey, it's this. And I'm like, oh, there it is. Thank God for her. Like she really just grounds us and brings us down. So thank you for that because I think that duality is needed.
Thank you. I know I love representing our duality because you push me. You push me out of my comfort zone. You make me face the parts of me that I maybe just didn't even know existed or have avoided facing. So,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for being the way you are, Tara.
Oh, you're so
Tara. We're always trying to say her name in like a
okay.
Staten Island accent.
It's
Tara.
not. It's just a hard A. Like everyone in
Say
Oregon, or
it.
I guess the Tara. You know, Tara, and everyone out here is like Tira, Tara. I'm like, whatever the fuck. Just I'm happy you know my name. I'm happy you know it, but it's Ta. You know, like Ta, attack, Ta. You know.
I know.
Oh
I
my
think one
god.
other final little thought from me on my reflection of season 1 is, you know, I've just
No
you
thought.
know, I was reminded of the importance of how it's so important for us to feel seen and heard. You know, while communication is a huge part of how we express ourselves, um, I think it's often what people don't say that matters the most. Yes, actions tell a lot, but reading energy is what allows you to experience what's meant for you and what's
Mm,
not meant for you to come and go out of your life. And I think that by operating from this place of tuning into what's resonant or dissonant, um, you just live a more harmonious life. And I think when you start to understand that, like, chaos may be a result of your childhood trauma. And so that may be comfortable. It might be exciting. It might be how you perceive love. There's nothing wrong with that. But, like, how's your nervous system feeling? And, like,
mm,
do you really fully understand what you're capable of when you have a rested, cared for nervous system and the power you have to heal yourself, to go to places in your mind you never thought possible, to not rely on any substance, to not rely really on anything outside of you, food, alcohol, sex. I mean, even like in the spiritual community, we're always kind of like wanting to get our fix and our high and to feel grounded. And it's part of our practice. And I think when you understand that it doesn't have to be this like all the time thing, right? And I think that's something you've also reflected on, right? Is
mhm.
you're not needing to practice every day. And that the practice is just experiencing life, and that's the whole
Absolutely.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I honestly can't remember what episode it was, but you were talking about maybe it was the relationship one, but you were talking about how you went through this cycle throughout your life where you were like, okay, I need this codependency, then I need absolutely nothing. And coming to this place of, like you were saying, having community for support when things are a little challenging, but not dependency, knowing that they are going to give you everything that you need all the time. It's just like, I've been giving myself. Today I'm a little tired. Can you hold me up too? You know, so I
Mhm.
like that you're, that theme is coming up very clearly for you during the reflection. And whoo, Victoria, you are freaking right. I mean, upon reflecting on season one, something that stood out to me too was the use of, I guess, my vocabulary specifically, and noticing what key words or phrases I was saying pretty consistently. And not that it was a good, bad, or indifferent thing, but it just showed where I was on my path. In the beginning, it was a lot of gratefulness and gratitude. And I was just like in this space of like, I'm happy to be here. And then like cultivating and experience this, putting voice, creating community, channeling, really shifted my word into like medicine. And I'm like, now I'm grateful for what I was given. And then that transition into then like giving out. Right. So, one thing that shifting away from the reflection of season one, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk to about season one
Oh,
before I
yeah, there
shift out
was
of
one
there.
more thing, one more thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
personal practice episode, which was actually our most watched episode or listened to, I've always had this tricky relationship with meditation, which so many people I feel like in the last few years have kind of like confessed, like, yeah, meditation doesn't really work for me, or my perception of meditation might vary from someone else's. And I think it's so important to know. And what I realized about myself is that I am always in a state of meditation. I am so aware. I am always focused in the here and now, even if I'm thinking about the future, right? Like I'm always instantly brought back to the present moment. And I think when it comes to being in your practice and like taking it out into the real world is how easily and quickly, and I use the word quickly loosely because we all have our moments and it's important to feel the icky feelings as important as it is to feel the good ones. But how easily you can return to a state of equilibrium and not feel thrown off your center, period.
Period. And that's perfect for what I was reflecting on as well, because during this break, as Victoria mentioned like a minute ago, um, I have shifted, and we've spoken about how like your practice will shift and grow and change. And it's about not being resistant to that, but following yourself. But easier said than done, right? So, as we all know, journal every day, was meditating, practice, love doing altars, was like always within my practice and like really carving out like like I mean like hours of time a day if possible to like be within that space. And then after season 1 came to a close, all of a sudden like it almost was like a light switch. Like it was just like, no. And I was like, "Oh, am I just out of routine? Did I get my period? Like, am I just having a bad week? Am I just tired? Is it the energy from the cosmos?" But every time I would go to sit in practice, my heart and my body was like, "No, you're not going to do this. You're not going to get anything from it. And you're just doing it to check something off your list to make you feel good about yourself, or more likely to make you feel less guilty." And the past couple weeks, I've really examined like my imposter syndrome, right? That's why I was so like flat in the first couple episodes, but it's also played out in a lot of other areas because we've mentioned how I don't have quote unquote credentials for spiritual things. Like, yes, I am yoga certified and I practice and I've like taken courses on certain things, but I don't have like a certificate that says I'm anything. So the imposter syndrome comes up for that. It comes up for my teaching career because, yes, again, I have degrees in certain things, but now I'm like in a different way, nuancing differently. And I'm like, do I have what I need? And it has been pushed in my face consistently, recently, shoved in my face. What's your credentials? What's your background? And it makes me like, oh my God, you're right. And it makes me feel guilty because I feel that I'm doing a disservice, that people are trusting their growth or their children or their spiritual or their emotional practice in in my hands. I mean, that's a little egotistical for me to say, but it feels that way. And then I feel that I'm not like I'm doing a disservice because I don't have all these credentials. And I couldn't really figure out like what like Tara, you're so powerful. You're so potent. People hear you. They respect you. They resonate with you. So, like, why are you getting in your own way? And actually, Victoria and I just came from a dance class with Jocelyn, our dance teacher, and she has us do this free movement. And in that, the first like direction she gave was find what is hiding, find what's like icky, or like, I forget how she phrased it, basically saying like, and bring that to light. And I was like, all right, well, I know it's probably something like I didn't even know. Like I was just like, it's probably something to do with this shit. I don't know, imposter syndrome, like where did whoever. And all of a sudden she was like, where does it live in your body? And I was like, my knees. And I was like, that's a really fucking weird place, like to think of an emotion living in like my knees. And I was like, is it shame? And then I realized it's that guilt that I was just explaining. And I am not a religious person, like, structured religion person. Never was, got excommunicated from the church, like, not here. And for some reason, once I made the connection between guilt and the space in my knees, the first thing was like, I want to get on my knees and ask for forgiveness. And then, like, my brain was like, "The fuck? You literally have never like, you've never done that." Like, maybe when you went and, like, made communion and they were like, "Put your knees on that little pew thing," or something, I don't know. That was literally the only and I've never done that to, like, ask for forgiveness. So, it was such this, like, weird emotion that or, like, feeling that arose in me, and then she shifted to, like, what's there to celebrate, and it made this beautiful link to me that I recognized that and of course, this was always in the forefront of my mind, but like I was just saying to you, now I'm actually feeling it, right? Like now we're actually embodying it. But I realized that I, my gift here is to be able to be the projector. What is that? The human design, right?
Mhm.
To be the
Yep.
projector, see the bigger picture and how it can work best. Like I know that has always been my gift, and I can use that plus my intuition to feel the energy and see how it's going to work best energetically. And yes, I may not have all the documentation of accreditation, but that is my gift, and that's why I don't need to have not that it wouldn't be helpful, but that I don't need to have all this cuz all it takes is one spark of oh, these kids need to learn communication. And then I'll like see one sentence about communication and I get the full download of how to teach that lesson, how they're going to best utilize it, what real life practices we can do. And it's the same with frequency broads, right? Where I get caught up in myself and I'm like, no, just like let it come in. That's my medicine. And that was so beautiful to recognize and be like, that is how why I have so many like beautiful relationships and connections because I can see the bigger picture, but then see the individual in its energy form and shape shift in a way that's honoring myself and my core, but shape shift and like fix to be like, all right, word, like this is what you're needing and I'm needing and how we can meet in the middle. So with this practice too, it's just like, no, I just need to follow my medicine, my intuition. And I have been living in like what I've been calling like living ceremony. Like I'm just existing and being present and getting moment by moment downloads and guidance. And like, yeah, sometimes I'll check in with myself with cards and shit, but like it has really just been like a walking, moving meditation of life without having to feel like I need to sit in a practice except for when I'm called to. And then it just feels so good and flowy. And I think literally an hour ago, I was able to drop the guilt of not showing up in practice and feeling like I'm failing this community for not doing that when ultimately I'm just doing it in a different way. So that's where I'm at right now,
Mhm.
literally in this very second.
That's so beautiful, and I'm so proud of you for reaching this point when you get to experience life and kind of reap the rewards of all the hard work you've put in, and I guess being reminded that life is meant to be enjoyed, and
Hmm.
we do enough hard emotional labor for others that you deserve this time to just do whatever you wanna do and feel how you wanna feel,
Thank you.
express yourself how you wanna feel.
I know you're talking to everyone, but I'm just going to say thank you on behalf of everyone. And another thing that came through, just one small line that came through
Yeah.
in today's dance was when I was thinking about this, I was like, oh, I'm trying to like be something, right? That's where the guilt is that I'm not being enough of something or I'm not something that I should be. And once I recognized that medicine, like they were like, you are, and that's worthy enough. Like
Mm.
you just being you is worth whatever you want it to be, whether it be having a voice in this community or in the school or what have you. Like you just being authentically you and following your guidance and doing the best that you can is more than enough.
If people live this way, would there be lies? Would there be betrayal? Would there be all of these kind of sneaky, icky behaviors that make us traumatized and put walls up around our hearts? Yeah, just food for thought. Uh,
I definitely don't think it would be as much. I think you may still feel betrayal, right? Because if people are living authentically and choosing their heart and their path, you may feel in that moment, oh, I've been betrayed before you can see the bigger picture. But I think you're right. All that sneakiness, all that ickiness wouldn't be there.
I was actually thinking a lot about that when you do live in your authentic or when you do live in your authenticity, it will trigger people who aren't.
Mm.
And they'll, I mean, that's often what causes friendships or relationships to end. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that comes up is some people evolve at a faster rate than others. And it's really, really hard for, I think, the person who is on kind of that fast track evolutionary pace because I think we have to experience loss in various relationships, whether it be family, friends, significant others. And um, I think sometimes what I see in like long term couples is, the decision to stay and to continue to be in your own evolution next to the person you chose to be in their own evolution. And when it comes to committing to someone, you are there even if you don't understand what their evolution is
Mm-hmm.
and you aren't operating at that same frequency and you kind of feel, I mean, it's going to feel like a major disconnect, and a lot of things will start to feel like it suffers because of it. Oftentimes, the intimate part of the relationship. But I think what another theme that keeps coming up is, just the power of communication and just simply being honest and saying, like, here's what I'm at, and saying, I don't know. It's okay to not
Mm.
know.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, a part of our own evolution, whether we're the quote unquote one on fast track or one on not, is to learn to respect someone else's path. I know I had to go through that hardship of like, come on, like, what if I like light year jump ahead of you and then we're so far apart, I'll never be able to reach you again. And I could definitely have let that happen. But because I chose to not force him onto my path, but say, you have your own path, that like skyrocketed me even more because I was just like in such a place of love. But Victoria, boom, 100%. If I did not communicate, if we were not sharing where we are, even if, like you said, it's I don't know where I am or I don't know what I'm feeling, then there would really be so much space between us because maybe frequency wise, we're not in the same space, but our energy can be in the same space with love and communication. But if you're not talking about it, you really distance yourself. And communication has come up. And another big theme for me, and I think for you, or just people in general right now that I'm seeing, is the concept of conditional love and unconditional love.
Oh, before we go there, I think what I'm hearing is that really the remedy for feeling betrayal when someone changes and you don't really understand or resonate with who they are anymore, the remedy is to have respect for each individual person's journey. And it is probably one of our biggest, toughest life lessons. respect is sort of this lost thing. I think us coming from the East Coast, respect, and especially in like certain cultures, it's everything, right? But that type of respect is not really, I think, the type of respect we're talking about. I think our type of respect is coming from a place of sovereignty, not
Yes.
conditioning or
Yes.
conditional love, which
Mm.
is
Well,
very strong
something
in that
yeah.
respect culture.
Yeah, and something that my friend Emma just said to me last night is, or she's been saying it a few times, but it really rung true to me last night, is there's a difference between being kind and being nice. Yeah, she was talking about kindness versus niceness in the way that we were kind of reflecting on the East Coast, West Coast, or just like small town versus city vibe. And where small town, like everyone is super nice and they're like, how's your day? And they're really slow and they talk to you. But if anything was happening to you, that was, like, scary or not right, like, they would, like, kinda hold back and, like, maybe gossip about her or maybe not, like, just, like, hold back, and that's being nice, right? But being kind is not always nice, and we were talking about how in New York, people don't stop to ask you how your day was, but if we ever saw something going down, we would 100% be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Stop that. You don't do that to another person," right? And
Mhm.
even though that's a little bit aggressive sometimes, that is showing kindness because you're showing that you care about somebody else. So I think when we look at our people portraying me and looking at their own journey, it's and that respecting their own journey, it's understanding that that doesn't mean that it always feels nice, right? That it's always like, "Oh, but they love me and like they're always going to like be this way," right? And it's like, no, if you're going to be kind and respect that person, then you have to respect that them growing and changing, even if it doesn't involve you anymore, is what they need right now. And by being kind to them, to just be like, you know what? I don't need to talk shit. I don't need to get back at this quote unquote betrayal, but just to be like, shit, that sucks. And I have to grieve it if that's how I feel. Or maybe shift my perspective into what this relationship's going to look like now, but it doesn't always have to feel nice, even though you're being respectful, right?
Well, let's jump back to the topic of conditional and unconditional love. And it's so interesting because Jocelyn, this morning at dance class, we were kind of talking about the topic. And she said, love is often this like blanket statement word, and it's not actually love, it's intimacy,
Mm,
conditional and unconditional intimacy, or name a synonym. I mean, love has been wrapped up in all of these kind of major life lesson themes that we often experience in relationships. And I just don't think it's fair for love. So,
yeah.
here on behalf of love, I'm going to say that ain't it.
Mhm.
Um, and I think if we start to dig deeper into like what conditions we put ourselves in to receive love, to be able
Mhm.
to give love, then I don't know what happens.
Well, I love that she I love that she really rephrased it for us, cuz she was like, love is unconditional. Right? So we can still say like unconditional love because it just reminds us that there's that free flowing, but not saying conditional love, because love is never conditional. It's intimacy. You're saying, but I think what people need to recognize is, and we're not just talking sexual intimacy, we're talking about vulnerability, we're talking about affection. So that could be from a parent, right? That intimacy of showing you how I love you, showing you that I approve of you, that I'm proud of you, that I think you're worthy, that I respect you. um and another thing that we spoke about was, when we're talking about unconditional love or just love, that does not mean that there's no boundaries and that you run yourself dry, and that there isn't a moment where you say love isn't enough. But notice that phrase, right? That phrase right there, love isn't enough. What you're saying is there's still unconditional love, but there's so much other shit happening, whether it's,
Mhm,
abuse
mhm,
or even just like codependency or whatever may have you. Love, that unconditional love, isn't enough because maybe you're not getting it back. But really being mindful of like, what is a boundary that's just like, hey, this makes me feel uncomfortable and I want to tell you about it and I want to show you. And it comes from a place of just caring for myself versus conditions, which usually come from a place of fear, right? I always had conditions that were like, if you tell me what to do, I'm out. If you, and at the bare minimum, like, tell me what to do. Like, hey, can you go do that? Right. Like, I'm not talking abuse, right? I'm talking like at the bare minimum. That was a condition I had because of fear of how my father controlled my mother and us, of how my mother was never controlled again. But now I have unconditional love where there is no conditions of, if you do this, I'm gone. Cause that's how I always lived. Like, if you breathe wrong, fuck you, I'm out, you know? And now it's like, we can come back from everything, anything, if you communicate and we are vulnerable with each other and there is still that unconditional love because you're giving yourself wholly, fully, wholly. um but we can still set those boundaries. So it's like a weird nuanced thing that really requires inner looking to say, well, where is this boundary or condition coming from? And that's how you can kind of tell the difference there.
mhm. One other way it shows up, I think, is, our expression of self is determined often by how we feel seen and heard by the person we're trying to receive love from. And we
Mhm.
often learn this in childhood. And it either steers you towards yourself, towards your authenticity, or far, far away where you have to spend some time unraveling, unpacking, and
Mhm.
discovering and exploring and being vulnerable and healing. And it just, it's a fun little cycle we like to call life, but it's such a common thing that we all share, especially those of us who are very energetically sensitive and or spiritual and have not ever really felt seen or understood by our parents or our significant others or even certain friends. And I think right now in particular, the veil has really, the veil is lifted. It's been lifted,
Mhm.
it's been pulled back down. It's kind of done this whole like
Dancing in the
theater
wind.
act, but it's yeah, it is definitely blowing in the wind. And if you grab it to look through it just for perspective on how you used to view things and let it
Mm.
fly away again, you can see very quickly just how different things are when you show up for yourself. And one thing Tara was saying to me earlier was the words choose yourself, which was very triggering to me because I'm like, I choose myself all the time. I take care of myself. Listen to my intuition. I surround myself with good people. I make good decisions, um, for the most part. But the ways in which I don't choose myself, I think, are often times in which I am giving of myself in a way where there's very little reciprocity and having to own that I'm giving my love away to someone who could never, ever love me to the level in which I deserve to be loved, and to no fault of their own other than the choices that they make or
Mhm.
have made, and that they don't necessarily know how to love themselves. And that's why, it's really challenging to be with a partner new or existing for a long time where they are in a dark place and they're not able to love themselves. And I think even in like speaking from a community perspective of like how do we support ourselves in a way where we give love to someone who's in need, but like there's always the giving and receiving, right? So like is that person even receptive to the love I'm trying
Mhm.
to give? Because it's often another thing that causes heartache is to give your love and to just have it like bounce right back at you. And
Mm.
that's often I love so hard and so deep, and that's usually what happens. It kind of comes back and splashes me in the face and wakes me up and says, "Oh, have you loved yourself this way?" And
Mm.
that's what choosing yourself means to me.
Yes, yes. That idea, I just love that visualization, although it's sad and hard to recognize and feel in the moment of the love bouncing back, right? Because when you're in any type of relationship, romantic or not, there's going to be times where your the other side of the relationship can't give you love. Maybe they're going through something and they're grieving, or they're just having a hard time or a busy day, and they can't give you that love back, but they're still receiving it, and it feels good to us when someone we can see them receive that love. Right? We can say, "Okay, it made them feel better. I know I'm a part of that." But when it bounced back, then you're like, "Oh my god, Jesus Christ, that was a waste of my time." Like, even though it really wasn't, right? Like, we're learning, we're growing, we wanna share our love. But I think that's where we recognize, because there are gonna be times in your relationships, like we've talked about in cycles, where they can't give it back. And there'll be times where you can't give it and you need to receive it.
Mhm.
But when it's bouncing back is when you realize, okay, maybe I need to reframe how I give this love, or how much love I give, or if I give it at all at this time. And I think what it comes down to is we put so much conditional love on ourselves because of programming from everything, right? I'll love myself when I look this way. I'll love myself when I get this degree. I'll love myself. And even if we don't say it in those phrases, we know that's what it's really coming down to.
Mhm.
I'm not worthy or good enough unless I'm like this. And we train ourselves to love like that. So then when we turn it out, we see the potential in people, or we may like see one good spark or want something more. And we're like, "I'll love you more when," or "I'll give you my whole heart when," or "I'll be open 100% when." And that's not how love works, right? That's not actual love. It's scattered intimacy, it's scattered vulnerability. So it's about like cracking open your chest and just being like, "I'm, when you're ready, ready to give you my heart, whether it's a friend or a relationship or a parent or a child. I'm ready to give you my heart no matter what happens." Now, if you don't receive that properly, or if you know, hurt me in that way that's not coming from a place of love or whatever, then there's, nuanced things to do. Then we have boundaries, right? But it's about just like giving it your all and seeing who can receive that and who can give you that back.
And you can't give it your all unless you're giving it all to yourself first.
Mhm. Got to train yourself to love yourself unconditionally. That's the only way you're going to figure out how to love others unconditionally.
It is a magical experience to be able to meet someone and both be kind of at that same place of being able to give and receive in a way that feels harmonious and soul satisfying. It's
Mm.
so rare. It's really a precious thing. And as many of you know who listened to season one, my celibacy journey was, it was more than just intimacy and sex. It was, everything I was consuming. Um, but I did end my celibacy to be with someone that I love so deeply and is part of my soul tribe, and we can't be together. And having to accept that that is the reality. I think it can be really challenging when you are often told and live by the idea that you are a creator and you create your experiences. And so you're trying to create or co create experiences with someone, and then where you just have to fly free and let things be exactly as they are and trust. Another, keyword, trust the timing of things, and that what's meant to be will be. A very triggering statement when you're going through the thick of it, but it's true. And I think the quicker you learn how to surrender and lean into, okay, this isn't working for me now. I'm not going to just keep perpetuating my own misery. I'm going to stop breaking my own heart. even
Mm.
though there's a lot of power in having your heart broken and realizing we're just all love. Like, it's so simple, and I think it just breaks it down into this I don't even know any other way to describe the rawness of yeah. Oh, my heart is hurting so bad talking about this.
Mm. Well, thank you for being vulnerable enough to say it, because it is hard. And I think something to
Thank you.
remember, like you said, oh, it's so hard. Like when you know you're the creator of your reality, that like you can't create what you want. And I think a big part of that, and you said the word co create, right? That's what makes it challenging because it's a free will universe. So you can create whatever the fuck you want, but you can't create for someone else. So if you're cultivating this reality that you want and it's with another person, whatever relationship that is, and that person isn't creating the same reality, it's something's got to shift, whether like you said, fly free because you realize this is not the reality you want to be in, or they shift into the reality that you want, or vice versa. But it does, everything is so nuanced, everything is so like, oh, we gotta like find a little like little spot over here, a little spot over there, and like wiggle out. And it's just because we want it to be so simple, and it is so simple, but then there's so many other things at play, other people at play creating their reality and projecting. And then there's energies coming from the cosmos that play on how you cultivate your reality. And it's just like really freaking messy sometimes. So I love that even in that, you can see the power in being raw with your heart, in having your heart broken, which makes most people say, like, love isn't real, like, love will never come my way. And you were like, holy crap, if my heart is broken, that means I loved so deeply. That means love is real. So that's beautiful that even in the thick of it, you can see that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm ever impressed by my ability to keep loving hard.
I'm also impressed by your ability to keep loving hard.
I'm sort of
Be-
like the spiritual version of Die Hard. No, hold on, that's not Die Hard. Or what? Hold on, what's the I don't know, whatever. I feel like
I mean,
the
yeah, why
moments
not?
in which I have these, just heartbreak experiences, it is like a death.
For sure. But then a rebirth to fly free, you know?
I'm really happy for the ways in which I am creating and being creative. And I think the word like being creative, similar to meditating, has always been triggering to me because kind of like your situation with credentialing and being, a credible source, a credible person to deliver your gifts. And you are accredited actually, right? Like
I
you
mean,
have a
yeah,
master. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm like, I just wanted to give you a little credit there because I'm like, you're
Thank
not
you.
totally willy-nillying this. But yeah, similar to like meditating, we all have our own way to meditate, and I think we all have our own way to create and express what we create. So I'm inviting you to start to look at the ways in which you create your
Mm,
reality, that you express your gifts through something creative. And like obviously the first thing we always think about is art. Well, and also I think there's this misconception in how we go about creating, and that it has to be something we set aside after we've done all the things. And one of my dear friends brought this to my attention. He actually listened to it on a podcast, um, Armchair. Maybe I don't know. If I will include the link below, but it's a
mm.
really excellent podcast that talks about indigenous cultures and how creative expression is just something you do, like breathing, like sleeping, that you don't have to define it and make it something other than what it truly is, which is like your own expression. And so we're seeing a lot of art programs be cut across the country, and art sort of be this like thing that's dangled in front of people's faces. Like if you're privileged enough, or if you go to a
Mhm.
good enough school that has the funds, you can create art. Or Um, and there are so many ways that I think there have been true rebels in the art community where they're like, we don't have to do it this way, like from tagging or, leaving frequency broad stickers all over town or
Mhm.
what? Um, yeah, so I thought it was a really interesting just perspective shift for me in that I'm such a powerful creator and my creations aren't like most people's. Like I really love creating through sexual expression, whether that be through dance, whether it be through just holding a very strong sexual frequency and walking down the street knowing I'm being looked at in a very certain way and not letting it get to me because I know that I own this power and no one has anything over me. There's nothing that they could
Mm.
come and take from me. I have so much that like I'll blow a little bit your way because
Ooh.
that's the way I operate in my sexual frequency because it's the deepest form of healing, and I am here to embody it, and I think through this podcast, through embodiment work, through so many circumstances and life lessons, I've learned that this is my superpower, and there's no shame in it. I don't feel guilty. This is who I am, and if it triggers you, awesome. If you like it and you're receptive to it, even more awesome. Like, it's who I am, and I'm really fucking proud of who I am.
Fuck yes. Holy shit. Can we like one day listen to episode 1, season 1 and season 2, episode 1 side by side? Because that power that you just stepped into, not that you haven't been in the whole time, but I just like really felt it right there. And it's so beautiful to think about
Well,
creation in that way.
and that's the thing, I've been in that energy, but I never gave myself permission to express it.
Ah, yes. Well, here you are, bitch, expressing it. And I love it. And I love that you are telling people that expression is not just art, right? I also had a really hard time with like, or creativity, I should say. I also had a really hard time with the concept of creativity. My oldest brother and my younger sister are like really super creative in the styles of like art or like building. And it was like I was like, "Oh, I can't do that." Like I don't have that imagination in my head to come up with this character and like put it on paper. And I never touched it. And then once I started recognizing that I create in my lesson plans. That's my creation. I create in the way that I communicate and help others communicate.
Yep.
Once I let that go, then creating in the typical sense of art, like this wall behind me, like I just went for it. Like I was just like, I'm gonna paint a whole mural on my wall. And I don't know how it's gonna come out because I've never painted in my life. And I love it. I love it so much. So it is about how are you going to create that energy and then express it through however, but being mindful of like what are you creating, right? Because you mentioned like, oh, Tara, you have the credentials. Yeah, I have a master's in special ed and general ed. I have a BA in child development. I took many professional developments on mindfulness. I have a yoga certification, all that shit, but it doesn't matter, right? Because my fear is that whatever fucking credentials I get, that someone's better off doing what I'm doing. And it's like, it is if that's the reality I'm creating. It is if that's what I'm expressing out. And thankfully, I've learned not to express that out. So it's only like that internal critique mind that's like, I don't know about that. But like I can express freely and feel confident in my expression of my creative forces through teaching, through being a human. So thank you for rephrasing that. I love that.
Thank you for being here, and Tara, thank you. I freaking love you.
I love you too.
Shall we
And I,
tell
yeah,
oh,
I was just gonna
shall we
say, I
tell the
feel
people?
excited.
Shall we
Yeah.
tell the people what we're
Hold on.
doing?
Should we do a little quick shout out for season 2? And then we'll
Mhm.
be like, here's what it is.
Yeah,
Here's
let's
what we
shout
got.
out. Let's shout out.
All right, I'm gonna first shout out my sister, Kelsey. Her links will be below. She is the one who created our logo. She's a photographer, but she's out in New York, but she also does a lot of just crazy creative processes. But she created the beautiful Frequency Broads logo and worked with us very long because we were all over the place with that one. So thank you, Kelsey. I love you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Well, our other shout out goes to our beautiful friend Erica, who is a very talented photographer here in Portland. And she took our new photos, and we,
Oh
by
my
the end of
God.
the shoot, had our pants off, like posing like Lil Kim on the album cover of Hardcore. Yeah, she just talk about being in her authenticity. Erica just made us feel so comfortable and
Hmm.
free to express ourselves and just show up and glow. Tara is like Bigfoot on camera.
Always,
I know not
always.
here on video, thank goodness, but like anytime we've
Still
taken photos
frames.
together, it's just yeah, exactly
Yeah.
that. And
Terrible.
Tara is looking
Mhm.
real fine in these photos. So
And that's because of Erica, because she made me feel so comfortable. Talk about creation, like, never mind the photos themselves, but the space and container she created for me
that,
to
yep.
fully express was like no other. So amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Another shout out to my wonderful friend Matthew for creating our intro and outro music that we pretend dance to. We're not listening to it, so if you see us swaying on YouTube to the video, always in our heads.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a good one. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Feeling very supported by those around us. So thank you. Because these are all people that we love and are willing to share their expression of creation and their medicine with us. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And speaking of love, my best friend Rachel moved across the country. Is actually in the process of moving across the country right now. And we love you for supporting us and listening to every episode. And we wish you all the best. Uh,
And
her moving, I mean, I just going on the theme of the alchemy of heartbreak and understanding that there's actually something you can do when you experience loss and loss, not necessarily in the form of death or a breakup or whatever, but more like you're still existing, but you're existing over there. Like, how do I like synthesize all of the memories we share together and like place it or maybe like even polish it and put it in my heart
mm,
in a way that my love for you will always exist. So,
mm.
yeah. Yeah. I'm all in my heart today. Ugh.
And we know that it's not just Rachel. I mean, mwah, I love you, Rachel, so much. But there are so many of you out there that constantly tell us that it's resonating and reaching out to give feedback. So we are just so grateful because what allows us to step in our authenticity is hearing, what's working and what's not. Even if that doesn't mean I'm going to not be authentic because it's not working for you, but it's still just knowing that people are out there listening and experiencing and sometimes feeling uncomfortable, but sometimes feeling empowered. And that's what this whole thing's about. And that's why we're not trying to fit any freaking mold out here. Like, season one was all Victoria and I channeling about these topics, and we love that. I mean, this whole episode was very similar to that. But we were called to shift into something new. And I think that that is practicing what we preach and not trying to hold into a certain mold to fit a certain brand, but just say, hey, we're actually called to do this now and let's try it out. And I have to say, it's going pretty well. So, Victoria, will you tell them about what season two is?
We are connecting you with our lovely community of practitioners who have just such potent, incredible offerings to share with you.
Hmm.
And we interview them, and each interview is so different. It's wild how we could feel the unique expression of their offerings. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope that in listening to you begin to see that as well and feel just the potency of these people.
And I know some of you might know one or two of them, one being my mother. um, but I invite you to explore people that you don't know yet
Mhm.
because like Victoria said, their medicine pumps through this computer, this voice, your headphones, and just really starts to awaken things inside you. And if not to work for them, just to understand the type of medicine that is out there for you to start exploring your own medicine within you. And like Victoria said, they're all so different and so juicy. And moving forward, I mean, we don't say it a lot because it just honestly, Victoria, I don't know about you, it just feels weird to say, but like, let's just say it. Let's just say it. Like and subscribe. Subscribe to us because there's
I
going
was
to
like, "What are you
be
gonna say?"
I don't know. It just I we don't really say that often, but we want to share our voice, but we also want to uplift the community we know is out there doing the work. So do us a favor, do them a favor, share our story and theirs, like our stuff, follow us, follow them, share it with anyone you think that will resonate because this
Mhm.
season is powerful and I don't want you to miss a single second of it. Did I do it right? Did I tell you to click the notification bell or whatever?
You didn't say that part, but yes, click the notification bell. Um, and in conducting these interviews, I think, Tara, we both were reminded of why we're doing what we're doing, and that's to build a community, to show you all the ways, all the options you have to get to wherever you're going in your evolution, and
Mhm.
that you're not alone on this path, that it can be fun, can be really freaking hard,
Yeah, but
but we're
ultimately it
all
comes out beautiful.
we're all in this together,
Absolutely.
whether we like it or not.
We're stuck together. Here we are. Especially if you follow us, then you're really stuck with us.
No, you're
Well,
never
thank
stuck.
you always have free will to choose, but you better choose us.
There you go.
And that's it. I think that's a wrap for episode 1. We love you so much. Thank you for being here with us. I am excited for you to see what season 2 is going to be all about. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and TikTok because there'll be little sneak peeks. We'll be putting out a schedule of who and what is to come so you know what to look forward to.
I love you.
Love you.